Hello and welcome to this special edition of FS MaNiA. This is going to be sort of a combination vlog slash summary video. I've been getting a lot of questions about these business jets, and one of the things I've been asked several times has been which of these are my favorite. So I thought I'd just take a few minutes and share some of my personal thoughts and opinions on the 4 business class jets that we've already featured. And just to let you know, I am leaving the door open in this series to add any new releases, such as Coronado's version of the Hawker 850 XP that should be being released sometime in the hopefully not too distant future. And then we're going to chat just a bit on where FS MaNiA has been and where we are heading, no pun intended. All the while I'll be showing you some highlight footage of the jets that we've been flying and some pretty spectacular shots of close formation flying of these 4 business jets that has not been seen yet. So before I get started on comparing these jets, there's really one thing I think that's important to point out, and that is one size doesn't fit all. Whether we're talking about airplanes or boats or even cars, it depends on mostly what kind of mission you want to fly or what kind of flying you do the most of. I think that's an important question that you need to ask and answer before you decide which of these jets might be the best jet for you. For example, if you fly a lot on AVSIM and you need to be able to fly SIDS and stars, then the Phenom 100's not the jet for you. But if you like to fly long distances and you want to go fast and high and you don't mind very complex systems and spending some time studying and learning how to operate the flight management system, then the Citation 10 is a great plane. Then the S550 Citation 2 and the Mustang are sort of in between. So really I think you do need to decide what the mission is for the aircraft and what kind of flying you like to do. As for me, I'm very thankful that I can fly all of these jets. I have them all and I have others, and I am so thankful that we have the technology that enables us to simulate flying these wonderful airplanes. We haven't always had this technology, and it just keeps getting better and better as time goes by and as technology gets better and hardware gets faster and the developers continue to improve it. So yeah, great. So let's start with the Embraer Phenom 100. Now, I realized, because someone pointed this out to me, thank you very much, that I mispronounced Embraer repeatedly in my video by saying Embraer, and so thank you for that correction. It's Embraer, I believe, is the way it's properly pronounced. So the Phenom 100. The pros are, first of all, it looks sharp. It's a beautiful airplane. It is also very easy and very simple. Lots of automation. A very short checklist. If you just want to go up and fly around some and you don't want to be bothered with doing a lot of pre-flight work and button flipping and switch setting and so forth, this is a good starter airplane. It's a good airplane to just go out and just fly around in. It is a good airplane to learn to fly jets in. Maybe if you're transitioning from props to jets, this is a very good one to get started with. I like that it has a Garmin G1000 glass cockpit. Those are great for situational awareness. Did I mention she is beautiful? Now, the downsides, first of all, a big one probably, and maybe even a deal breaker for some people, is there is no updatable nav database. So you're basically sort of stuck with the FSX database, which is not updated. That means you can't really fly SIDS or stars very easily anyway into major airports. So that's a problem for some. Another issue is the Garmin G1000 is not as functional or as accurate as you might like it to be. It will definitely get you where you need to go, and it will fly approaches, less the stars. So there's that. And the other thing is the documentation, and this is just kind of typical for Coronado it seems, but it's pretty minimal. So you're going to get some checklist and some pictures and maybe a few pointers, but it's not very thorough documentation. So you're going to have to do some research and try to figure out what some of the procedures are. So those are the pros and the cons. I really like flying the airplane. In fact, some of the shots you're going to see later on, I used it as my chase plane to take the video shots because it's so easy to fly and it's versatile. And so, I mean, it really is a great airplane. It's definitely a great looking airplane. So that's the Embraer. And that's how I feel about that. So let's talk about Flight 1's Cessna Mustang. The pros are that this is a very light, entry-level, affordable move-up jet. Flight 1 did a good job modeling the systems. It has a G1000 glass cockpit with an updatable navigaph so that you can fly SIDS and stars. You can program those into your flight plan. The G1000 has a lot of information, so it gets high marks for its accuracy as far as that goes. It's got a good autopilot. So those are the good points. The cons are, I think sometimes in the daytime, to me, the panel seems a little dim. I wish it were a little bit more brilliant or easier to see. It's a small airplane. It's only a 6-place airplane, so if you want to take a lot of people somewhere, you can only take 5 of your best friends, so somebody's going to have to stay behind. The Garmin G1000 does have VNAV capability, but it is not modeled in this jet, so that's not a big deal to me though, because it's easy enough to, with the autopilot that it has, it's easy enough to manage the descent. You do have to plan ahead and maybe do a little calculation on how far out to start, but no big deal there. I had some issues with the pressurization. It was a little swirly. It seemed like it was maybe a bug in there, and honestly, out of all the airplanes, the 4 that we flew, this is one that I didn't get along with as well as I did the others. It didn't play nice sometimes, and there were just some little crazy things that happened that caused me to have to start flights over and messed up some videos. And so, you know, I got a little frustrated with it, but when everything was right, it flew very well. It just seemed a little bit buggy to me, but you know, I'm not trying to beat up on Flight 1 because sometimes it's your own system. It could be my system. It could be some settings that I had, and if I had spent enough time researching the forums and maybe getting some support, I could have probably ironed some of those things out. So, you know, I don't want to discourage anybody from buying it that may want to or like it, because it's really a nice jet and it's great to fly. In fact, all of these jets, I'll say, are great jets, and that's why I chose them to feature them, because I had read reviews and looked at them, and they all looked like they had promise. So, you know, there's no perfect one out there, but certainly we have some great choices, and we just deal with the issues that we have to deal with. So I should say that these are my opinions. I'm not an expert in jets. I've taken limited flights in all of these jets, so I can only just offer up my opinion based on the experience that I've had flying them, and so for what that's worth. Now let's talk about Coronado's Cessna S550 Citation 2. First, the pros. She is a pretty girl, beautifully modeled, and now at long last she has a updatable navigaph database. Not everything in this jet is perfectly modeled. There are some switches and some readings and things in parts of the systems, etc., that aren't perfect. That's the bad news, but the good news is if you want to, you can go to AVSIM. They have a very good group of guys over there that are extremely intelligent, that particularly when it comes to coding, and they'll be glad to give you some help on fixing some of the quirks, and that typically goes with almost all of the Coronado airplanes, especially some of the newer releases, as Coronado is evolving into more complex turbine airplanes and jets. So you can get good support from AVSIM, and I do think that this model has some very good sounds. I think it has very good night lighting, and it handles well. It taxis well. It seems like an honest representation of what the real deal would be like. I love the older Collins radios. They are very easy to tune. I wish all the radios and all the airplanes that I fly were that easy to tune. So those are some of the pros. The cons, first of all, this is a 1980s vintage airplane, and it was built during the early days of the glass cockpit, so it may not have the same level of simplicity and automation as a Garmin G1000 cockpit. It's a little more complex and maybe a little more workload for the pilot, and a little tougher to learn some of the procedures, especially because, as is typical with most of the Coronado airplanes that I have, there's minimal documentation. You get a few checklists, very basic information, so you do have to kind of figure things out, and I guess YouTube videos help. You do need to study this aircraft. The FMS, it's sort of a dumbed down version. Well, it's a lot of a dumbed down version. It's basically the default GPS with maybe just a few extra features. It's a lot better with the NavGraph updatable database, but it's still not fully functional. But I will say it will take you anywhere you need to go. It will fly approaches, it will fly SIDs, it will fly stars. It has a few little quirks I had to figure out, but I think once you do and get used to it, you can pretty much go anywhere you want to go with it. So that's the Cessna S550 Citation 2. And now, sort of saved maybe the best for last. I guess if I have a favorite, it would probably be the Citation 10. Although again, that depends on what the mission is. But this is a great airplane, and Eaglesoft did a wonderful job with the accuracy and the functionality of it. Now, I realize that probably the number one complaint is that the textures, some of the textures, not all, but some of the textures are maybe a little rough around the edges. And there's some truth to that. I would say the ones that are the most important, which are the ones that are on the 5 CRTs and on the flight management system, those all are very well modeled and highly detailed. And I believe that the goal of Eaglesoft is probably to keep the polygon count down. Lord knows the flight sim community complains when developers' airplanes put a heavy hit on frame rate, so I understand that logic, but there's a lot of work back in the passenger cabin of this airplane that if you just had the option to cut it off, maybe that would save some polygons that I would have probably put in the cockpit. But again, the textures that are less than perfect, and they're certainly not the ones that are most important. The ones that are on the CRTs, and those actually are much easier to read to me than some of the other airplanes, some of the other jets that we've flown. So that's an issue, but it's not a deal breaker. I think that this is a high performance airplane. It flies high, it flies fast. In fact, it's the fastest civilian airplane currently available. And I should qualify that Gulfstream put out an airplane, and I don't know exactly which model, that took that place from the Citation for a short period of time, or for a period of time. And Citation, though, released a upgraded version of the Citation 10. I think they call it the new Citation 10, and it has reclaimed that place. So very well modeled in terms of accuracy and functionality. The flight management system, the flight guidance system are very functional. They will do almost anything you want them to do, but you are going to need to study, and you're going to need to fly it by the book. And there's a little bit of a problem because the documentation, there's a lot of it. I would say it's fair. It could be more complete, particularly in terms of the FMS and the flight guidance system procedures. It's better than some airplanes that I've flown, but there's room for improvement there. So, yep, this is, out of all the airplanes, I think the one that I have enjoyed flying the most. Has definitely been more challenging. It's not an easy airplane to fly. It's not probably one that you'd want to start out on, because if you're just getting into jets, because you're probably going to get frustrated trying to figure out how to get all the systems to work properly. But definitely one to keep it in your sights, and maybe Eaglesoft will at some point update some of those textures and make it a pretty much perfect business jet for FSX. Now, if I seem like I might be a little bit wishy-washy on these jets, it's probably because I really do like them all. There's not one that I'm going to kick out of my hangar. I'm going to keep flying these jets, and hopefully I'll get better as time goes by. I don't typically stick to just one airplane. I know some guys like to do that. Some pilots like to fly just one airplane and get really good at flying one airplane, and in the real world that's more typical of what happens. But Flight Simulator gives us so many choices. There's so many airplanes to fly and so many places to fly them. I'm not going to be satisfied flying just one airplane all the time. I'm going to fly as many as I can. That's what I like to do. I like learning the different systems and the different features of each of the different aircraft, and everything from the smallest single engine airplane that's out there to the biggest jet that's out there. I've got 747s, 777s, 737s, MD-11, I have pretty much a good sampling of almost every part of aviation offerings that are available in Flight Simulator in my hangar. So I definitely will be flying many different types, and I just like to do that. So that brings me to where we've been and where we're headed. So where have we been? Well, let's see. We have flown Coronado's Cessna 208B EX Grand Caravan in the Antilles Islands. We have flown Coronado's Piper Seneca 5 in the Swiss and French Alps. We have flown Aerosoft's Twin Otter in Nepal high up to Lukla. We have flown Coronado's Pilatus, Swiss-built, not Swedish, PC-12 in the Rocky Mountains around Denver, Aspen, and Bell, Colorado. And we have flown the Real Air Beechcraft Duke B-60 in scenic Seattle, Washington. So, where are we headed? Well, we're going to keep flying general aviation airplanes. The next airplane on my list is the Real Air Turbine Duke. And also, I have in my hangar the TBM 850 by Coronado, the Piper Saratoga, the Malibu Mirage by Coronado, and also Flight 1's Beechcraft B200 King Air. So we're going to be flying those for sure. And I've also got a couple of commercial planes I would like to fly. One is the probably the hardest plane that I have flown so far in Flight Simulator is Majestic's Bombardier Q400-8. That's a very challenging airplane to fly it and fly it properly. I also have PMDG's Boeing 777, and I love that airplane. It's actually pretty easy to fly once everything's programmed. It virtually flies itself, and basically you can just sit back and mostly monitor. So we'll probably slip some of those in at some point. Right now we're in Alaska, and we're headed up further up into Alaska. We're going to tootle around up there for a while, and gorgeous scenery. And then we'll probably come back down and fly at some places around the West Coast. Typically like Orbix scenery, but sometimes we'll slip in some others. And but pretty much come down the West Coast, and then we're going to head out to Hawaii. I've got some scenery packages for the Hawaiian Islands, and there's some great challenging airports out there to fly into. So we'll probably fly the 777 once we head out there, which would make sense. We'd want to fly something like the 777 to do the ocean crossing, and from the East Coast. So we may eventually work our way back over, and I say I'm from the East Coast of where? The East Coast of the U.S. We have some mountains and some coastal regions and some large airports. We've got Atlanta to the south and JFK to the north and Chicago, and there's some great airports out our way, and certainly we have the Appalachian Mountains, and so yeah, lots of places around the East Coast to fly as well. And we'll do some more overseas flight. Basically we have a whole world to explore, and Flight Simulator is a good way to explore it. So we'll just keep on exploring until we run out of planes to fly and places to fly to, and I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. Also, X-Plane. I do have a copy of X-Plane that I am working with. I have a few aircraft in X-Plane that I'm training on, and I'm still learning the simulator, but you can certainly expect to see some X-Plane flights in the near future. So in closing, I just want to take this opportunity to say a very special thank you to all those who have subscribed, who have commented, asked questions, and mostly those that have encouraged me as I have been on this journey of producing this content for FS MaNiA. Also, a very special thank you to Bruno L., one of our subscribers, who showed me finally, thank goodness, where the parking brake was on the Citation X. So thank you much, Bruno L., for that. And there's a picture of it for everyone else to see. I looked all over that cockpit and I didn't find it, and there was one place I didn't look, and that's where it was. So if you like these videos, I'd love to have you subscribe, hit the like button. All that helps. We'll keep putting out content, and I appreciate everybody for watching and everybody for subscribing. So until next time, from FS MaNiA, so long.